Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Roseville Wrecking Ball. The Roseville Wrecking Ball.
Joshua Shrum. He is a very talented steward, very knowledgeable.
The Roseville Wrecking Ball. This is one of those podcasts where I listen to every episode. I love what he's putting out there.
The Roseville Wrecking Ball. Josh Shrum.
Parcels of knowledge. Does a fantastic job with that podcast.
The Roseville Wrecking Ball. He is an Article 8 scholar, and thank God. We need Article 8 scholars right now.
Tune into the Parcels of Knowledge podcast while you're on the route. That's the mailman's playbook, brother.
Good morning and welcome back to Parcels of Knowledge, that podcast dedicated to delivering knowledge to the city letter carrier with your host, that Roseville Wrecking Ball. Today is Wrecking Crew Wednesdays, where we recognize the members of our Patreon prior to the episode. So we're going to talk about, first of all, we got a few new members. And let's see. I'm just going to go through the membership list. By the way, you could be a member of our Patreon. I'll put the link in the description. And you could donate anything between $1 and $50 per month. And you could cancel at any time. Basically, what I'm asking for is if you feel like this podcast delivers you value, well, you could decide, okay, if this podcast is worth $1 to me, I'll pay $1. That way I could commit that money to my costs. And so far, I've been able to buy a new microphone. And I haven't set it up yet, so I'm using the old one right now. But pretty soon, it's going to be cool. So we'll see how that works. Now, I'm going to recognize these people. We're going to start from the top. Rick Steiner, of course. E.R. Tom Perry. Philip DeGalio. By the Square. I know this is my friend Chris, but I gotta figure out what his last name is so I can fully recognize him. Amy Tyvand and Ryan Ackers. Those are our members. We appreciate you, Wrecking Crew, for everything that you help us with in terms of the cost of the maintenance of this podcast. And I'm trying to set up a website pretty soon. If this continues, I'm definitely going to be able to set up a website, and it's going to be a great website. So thank you for everything. I really do appreciate it. And now we'll move on with the show. So basically, I want to mention before we start that I'm on vacation. You know, it's a good week to be on vacation considering the winter storm, but I didn't do that on purpose. You know, my daughter's birthday is on the 30th. She's turning 8, and I got my anniversary on the 31st. So I just took this week because 19 years together with my wife. But I took this week just because of those things, and man, did I pick a good week. Am I right? I don't know. It's been crazy out there, it seems like. But, yeah, also, Kimetra Lewis. Kimetra Lewis is going to be on the podcast. She's our next Saturday. That's why this Saturday we're not going to have anybody. Kimetra Lewis will be the Saturday following that one. And on that Saturday, you could submit questions to me from now until that Saturday. And I will ask Kimetra Lewis every question you submit. Anything and everything. I'm going to put the link, I'm going to put the email address that you send those questions to in the description. That way you know exactly where to send them. Every single question you send me, I will ask. And last but not least, I do want to talk about, I hope you guys are sending those letters. If you sent one, please give me a notification so I can kind of account for how many people actually did do it. Some people are bringing them to their branch meetings. If you don't know what I'm talking about, refer to episode 70. Let me make sure that was the right episode. I don't want to say the wrong one. Yeah. Where we ask for people to do a congressional inquiry into the Postal Service's degradation of their service standards, especially in particular related to the undelivered mail, but it doesn't have to be only undelivered mail. But yeah, I'm trying to get people to send letters. I got a template letter for you to use. If you haven't done so already, please help us out. Now, we do have Jeff Krula, great guy from my office. He has a meeting with Peters about this. So, as soon as he's done with that meeting, I'm going to attempt to get an interview out of him to see how it went. So hopefully we get somewhere with this. I know it's going to be a long, hard thing. As someone I know, Zaleski, he's told me, it's one of those things where if you want to get something done politically, it's not an overnight thing. It takes some time, and I agree with him. So, we're never going to stop trying, and let's get this thing under control. I think Congress can be our friends as much as sometimes they don't help. I think there are times where they could be a useful ally, especially where their own political mail is incumbent on our delivery. So, of course, they're going to be interested. It's just common sense. But now, on to the main topic. Today, I want to talk about winter weather safety. I just want to share some knowledge from, of course, Joe Glanka, the weatherman, weather mailman. He's like all around very knowledgeable, and he's also knowledgeable about the weather. So I learned a lot from him with his articles and stuff. So I'm just going to go over something from Joe Glanka and add a little bit of my own to it. So it's about letter carrier winter weather safety. So snow, ice, and exposure to cold air cause or contribute to thousands of letter carrier injuries and illnesses each year. The actual number cannot be known because many letter carrier injuries are never reported because of needless fear, intimidation by postal management, and lack of knowledge. And boy, there is a lack of knowledge. And here's an example. Superficial frostbite, which I've suffered plenty of times, can hurt nerve tissue, which has resulted in my feet not being able to feel much. All right, I've gotten a lower sense of feeling in my toes. And one thing that I hear Michigan letter carriers say all the time is they can't feel their fingers anymore. These carriers have probably had frostbite, and they just don't know it, which is kind of okay because at the same time, if you don't know it, that means it hasn't been too much of a burden on you. But it is kind of alarming because it may become a problem. Make sure you understand what's going on and work safely out there. The most effective method of preventing on-the-job injuries always remains the same, and that is working with situational awareness and full control of your immediate environment at all times. Additionally, some newer members are experiencing their first winter season performing letter carrier work. Veteran letter carriers should make every effort to provide helpful suggestions and assistance to our newest brothers and sisters regarding protective clothing and safe work methods. A review of some practical winter weather safety guidelines for each letter carrier is as follows. Cold air. Unlike reptiles, humans evolved as warm-blooded creatures. Thus, our bodies must respond to and compensate for significant differences in temperature between a winter environment and a normal body temperature of about 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. Wind enhances the chilling effect of cold air by carrying the heat and moisture away from our bodies. This effect is typically referred to as wind chill. Wind chill also affects animals but has no effect on inanimate objects such as automobiles. Wind chill is not the actual temperature of the air, but rather it is a measure of the effect of the cold air plus the effect of wind on exposed skin. Snow cover also enhances the effect of cold air because of its high reflectivity. Much of the solar radiation that reaches snow-covered surfaces is reflected back into space and not absorbed by the earth. Thus, surface air stays colder over snow cover than when the ground is bare. Cold air is also heavier and denser than warm air and will sink and pool near the ground, particularly at night. During the winter season, a letter carrier typically spends 6 to 7 hours or more per day exposed to cold and wind, and the risk of cold-related injury is significant. A common and potentially serious winter injury incurred by letter carriers is frostbite, which can occur anywhere on the body, although the face, hands, and feet are most susceptible. The initial symptoms of frostbite are a loss of feeling and a white or pale appearance of the skin on extremities such as fingers, toes, earlobes, or the tip of the nose. If you detect these symptoms, stop and seek medical help immediately. Continuing to work with the initial symptoms of frostbite may result in serious and permanent tissue damage to affected areas. I just want to also let you guys know that people who have had frostbite before, even if it's superficial frostbite, which is like the first stage that can only damage skin and nerves, you are more susceptible to getting frostbite again. So keep that in mind, that a history of frostbite will make it so that you will likely get it again if the same conditions exist. Job-related frostbite is a traumatic injury and should always be reported on U.S. Department of Labor OWCP Form CA1 when it occurs. Frostbite is also considered a medical emergency. If treatment is not immediately available, slowly rewarm the affected area, but do not immerse it in hot water. Since there is a loss of feeling with frostbite, burns can result. Frostbite is an underreported winter season letter carrier injury, particularly among newer, less experienced carriers. A less common but serious condition is hypothermia. Prolonged exposure to cold wind and moisture can result in a drop of body temperature that can be dangerous and potentially fatal. If body temperature drops below 95 degrees, immediate medical care is necessary. The most common sign of hypothermia is uncontrolled shivering. The importance of dressing properly before working in the cold cannot be overstated. It is always better to wear several layers of lighter clothing rather than one very heavy garment, because body heat and warmer air is trapped between the layers, providing an insulating effect. Wearing layers also allows you to adjust to changes in conditions while you work. The layer of clothing that is closest to your skin should be a light material that will not trap moisture from perspiration next to your skin, instead allowing moisture to pass through it. Much of the body's heat loss in cold weather is through the top of the head. Thus, wearing a hat is essential for maintaining body heat. Insulated boots or other protective footwear is important for protection against both cold and moisture. Mittens are better than gloves, but usually not practical for letter carrier delivery duties. It is helpful to consume additional food during periods of intense cold because extra calories provide the body with fuel for warmth. We burn more calories performing the same task in cold weather than we do when it is warmer. It is also helpful to drink plenty of liquids for two reasons. First, sweating often occurs when working in cold weather as the body heats up under layers of protected clothing. Also, cold air is often extremely dry and it draws moisture away from the body. That is why dry and chapped skin is so common in winter. Also, nosebleeds for me. Winter storms. Although they can be beautiful to watch, winter storms pose a potential risk to everyone, as we have found out these last few days. About 70% of winter storm-related deaths and serious injuries occur with vehicle accidents. However, virtually all the rest involve people who are caught outside without adequate protection or shelter, or those such as letter carriers who must be outside in winter storm conditions because of the job requirement. Snow is not frozen rain. The term for frozen raindrops is sleet. A snowflake can melt into a raindrop, but a raindrop cannot become a snowflake. Two general types of winter storms affect us in Michigan. Organized areas of low atmospheric pressure approaching from the south and west can bring widespread heavy snowfall and other wintry precipitation. Another frequent source of winter season snowfall is the so-called Alberta Clipper systems that move quickly to the southeast from the Canadian prairies. Although snowfall from these systems is generally not as heavy, they are often quite energetic, usually accompanied by strong winds and followed by cold air. Freezing rain occurs when raindrops fall from warmer air aloft that is above freezing, and then reach the ground where the temperature is below freezing. The liquid water can turn to ice upon contact with the ground, creating exceptionally hazardous conditions for letter carriers to walk or drive in. Ice storms can also cause major property damage as well as widespread electric power outages, which is what I believe is going on in Tennessee, unfortunately. Freezing rain is most common in the southern lower peninsula, and a significant ice storm occurs in Michigan about once every 2 years. Sometimes rain that is falling from warmer air aloft will freeze into solid or nearly solid ice pellets before reaching the ground. This is known as sleet, and it is generally less hazardous than freezing rain, although still a walking and driving hazard for letter carriers. Sleet is sometimes erroneously referred to as hail, but is not the same as the true hail that falls from thunderstorm clouds. Postal management unrealistically expects mail delivery to be as efficient in deep snow or icy conditions as during warm and dry weather. Computer-generated workload information, i.e. DOIS, does not include environmental factors, and there is no reason to get upset when a supervisor fails to realistically assess your work. Don't argue. Simply follow the established reporting procedures in the M41 handbook. Notify management if you are subsequently unable to meet their unrealistic time expectations. Your actual work as a professional letter carrier is the only determinant of what is real. Take all the necessary time and precautions to avoid injury or illness due to hazardous weather conditions. And let me tell you what, if your heat is not working in your car, do not drive that car. Bring that car back to the station and tell them, you got to fix this car or else I'm not working in this unsafe condition. You have that right. It's of life or limb out there. Overexertion and deep snow and severe cold can be a dangerous thing, even for a healthy and well-conditioned person. Ice is very hazardous for walking and for driving. It is always appropriate to list weather conditions on a PS Form 3996 as a reason for requesting assistance or overtime when it is clear to you that the weather will be impacting the time needed for street duties. It does not help that letter carriers are routinely instructed to walk across lawns. As a result, in the winter, the normal walkway is frequently covered with snow. If existing or developing weather conditions result in the need for more time than expected or authorized to complete deliveries, letter carriers should seek instructions. Never skip any portion of your lunch or break time to perform work in a manner that is unsafe for delivery conditions simply to make up for time lost because of the weather. Stopping for food provides important fuel and energy for the body's internal warmth, as well as providing a respite from prolonged exposure to harsh conditions. Winter weather brings some unique and difficult hazards for all letter carriers. Postal management is concerned only with making their phony numbers, and not at all with your health or well-being. Approach your work with full situational awareness at all times and adjust your work to changing conditions as needed. Take all comfort stops as you need. Sometimes you gotta just sit there in between loops and let your hands warm up. It's up to you whether or not you feel safe enough to keep going, or if you need a comfort stop. It's a reasonable comfort stop, trust me. And if you need to stop at a store, if your heat's not working, do that. It's absolutely within your right. It is ultimately up to you. to do whatever is necessary to avoid winter weather-related injuries and illnesses. And that's about all I got to say about the topic. Hopefully you learned something valuable today. I'm still waking up early in the morning. I woke up at 4 this morning. That's normally when I record my podcast. But since I'm on vacation, I'm going to go get donuts with my kids before over at Tim Hortons before they start school. So, hopefully you learned something valuable today. And as always, have a good day.
If these guys are getting educated, we will be in big trouble.
Management's been weighing you down like a bag of wet catalogs, but you don't gotta take it. You strap on the elbow of education, dig it?
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Roseville Wrecking Ball. The Roseville Wrecking Ball.
The Roseville Wrecking Ball is an Article 8 scholar, and thank God, we need Article 8 scholars right now. The Grievous Genius and the Roseville Wrecking Ball doing amazing work.
Tune into the Purses of Knowledge podcast while you're on the route. That's the Mailman's Playbook, brother.